Hey everyone, Ryan here at eTrailer. Today on our 2023 Kia Sorento, we're going to be showing you how to install the Curt custom fit vehicle wiring harness. Before we do that though, let's just take a minute, we'll check this one out and make sure it's going to work for your Sorento. These Kias have become pretty popular as of late, and you see quite a few of them out on the road, and they're capable SUVs, you know, so people tend to do a little bit of everything with them. And if you plan on pulling a trailer around, you're going to need a way to power up the lights on that trailer. That way you're not only safe, but legal as well. And that's where a kit like this is going to come into play. It's going to have the four-way flat type wiring connector, which is really common, especially for the types of trailers that the Sorento is likely to be pulling around. And it's going to provide you with the basic lighting functions. So you'll get your turn signals, your brake lights, and your tail lights. There are several different wiring kits available for the Sorento, and what one is going to work for you really just depends on how your vehicle is set up. Before you end up picking up any wiring kind of blindly, I do suggest doing a couple things to make sure that you get the kit that's going to work for you the first time. With this particular kit today, it's designed for vehicles that do not come equipped with the factory tow package, and it's designed for the Sorentos that have the LED taillights. It's important to see our tech tips and installation notes. You know, one kit will work with certain submodels, others won't, so on and so forth. But to be honest with you, from my personal experience, more Sorentos have the factory tow package plug than not. And that's not to say, you know, for example, just because your Sorento didn't come equipped with a hitch on it, that doesn't necessarily mean you don't have the factory tow plug connectors. One quick way you can check, on the driver's side there's a small panel that you can remove, and we'll show you how to do that in the installation. It's super simple. I would suggest lowering that panel down and seeing if you have the factory connectors located back there. It seems like some vehicles will have one plug and others will have two plugs. There's a wiring kit for both scenarios. So regardless on your situation, there's going to be a kit that'll work for you. If you have those tow package plugs, I'd advise getting the wiring kit for that because it just plugs right in, super simple. With this one, it's not going to require you to splice in or cut into any factory wiring, but you are going to have to spend a little bit more time getting everything set up. And with this one, it's just going to have factory style connectors that will plug into the back of your taillights. As far as getting the connector end mounted up and secured, you got a couple of different options. You could always use what's called a no drill long bracket, which would clamp to your trailer hitch. And then you could get a four-way flat bracket where this would plug into, and you could have it, you know, mounted up, something like that. On this particular vehicle though, it really doesn't look bad just hanging down. So what you always could do is pick up, it's about a foot of wire loom, and this is how we're going to keep ours today. Put that over the wires to help it kind of blend in a little bit better. And then you could always just take the dust cover, loop it around the hitch, and set it up that way. At the end of the day though, not a whole lot to it. You know, it's going to get the job done and power up the lights on your trailers. So can't really ask for too much more. As far as the installation goes, you kind of touched base on that a minute ago, but it's not really that it's complicated per se. It's just time consuming, having to route wires and everything like that. With this kit, the wire that's going to get routed over here to the passenger side is a little on the short side. So I extended that wire about 2 foot to make it a little easier to run and everything. So if you want to set it up like we did, you will need a couple foot of wire and 2 extra butt connectors to tie in there and actually extend everything. Now if electrical stuff is something you're not comfortable with, or you don't have the time or place to install it yourself, definitely understand that. You can always use our dealer locator network to help you find a shop that can set this up for you. But if you're doing it yourself, feel free to hang around. We'll go ahead and get started on it now. To begin our installation, we're going to be here at the back of our Kia, and we're going to need to remove our tail lights. So if you open up our rear hatch, we're going to have a couple of little covers that we can remove. If you take a small flathead screwdriver, and just pop those open. And that'll expose a fastener in there. You can use a 10mm socket, or it looks like on these you can use a Phillips head screwdriver too. Go ahead and pull these out. And we should be able to grab our tail light, start to kind of work it loose. If it's really tight like ours is, we can come over to the edge here, and what we can do, we can take a little trim tool like this and just very lightly kind of pry on it a little bit to help kind of loosen everything up. You can get this unplugged, and there's just a connector you push down on the tab, separate it. We'll set our light off to the side and do the same thing to get the passenger one removed. While we're up here, what we can do on each one of our taillight pockets is take a fish wire. This is just a piece of tubing, nylon tubing that I have laying around. You could use a metal coat hanger if you straighten it out, or a thicker piece of wire, kind of whatever you got. But I'm gonna drop one end of it down, and what I'm trying to do is get this to come out of the bottom side. Over here on the driver's side, that probably won't happen because there is a panel under the vehicle that we'll have to remove, but by doing this, at least it'll be ready for us when we get under there and pop that panel out of the way. Underneath our vehicle on the driver's side, this is our panel that we can remove. I do want to mention too, our spare tire is removed, and that's because I had to pull it off to put the hitch in place, and I figured, why put it back up now? It'll make it a little easier, give us more room to work. But temporarily loaning a spare tire is something you definitely don't have to do, but you can if you want. But with that said, this panel here, there's 3 push pin style fasteners on it. You can take a flathead screwdriver, pry underneath the head of the fastener. You can work the whole thing out. There's 2 more plastic fasteners on the bottom of our frame rail. And with these, you can take a 14mm socket and an extension and just loosen them by hand. What I usually like to do is kind of get both of them going, and then a lot of times you'll have to kind of apply some downward pressure on the panel while you're unscrewing it to get them removed, and we'll set our panel off to the side. With that panel gone, I was able to reach up there and grab the pull wire that we dropped down. And then I took our new wiring kit, and the end that has the brown, yellow, and red wire, I taped that connector to our fish wire. That way we can pull it up into position. Back up top, you can take your pull wire feed that up, and what we can do, I'll go ahead and get all this tape off, that way we can plug it in. The way these are going to work, one connector is going to plug into the factory connector here, like that, and then the other end, you can grab our tail light, plug it into it. Take the tail light, reinstall it the opposite way that we removed it. Back underneath, we can start to route some of our wires. So we'll have our green T-connector wire as well as the 4-pole flat wiring. That's going to get routed up along through here. And this is all just loosely routed now. I'll come back once it's done and zip tie it up and everything. But our 4-pole flat wire, that's just going to drop down, and I have that looped around the safety chain opening on our trailer hitch. The green wire is just going to continue along through here and drop down right here in this area. Now, it looks like I could tape it to our pull wire and pull it up into the taillight pocket, but it's going to be kind of a stretch, you know. So I figured why even bother with that. It looks like it will reach you, especially if you route this as tight as you can and kind of think that through. It should go up into the pocket, but so we can kind of effectively demonstrate, you know, where we're putting stuff and everything and making it a little easier. What I'm going to do is extend this wiring a little bit. We made an extension here. This is just, I don't know, probably a couple foot piece of wire, and I crimped on butt connectors to the end there. We'll just cut this and strip the end back. And this is also how we're going to hook up our power wire, you know, using these butt connectors. But we'll give the wire a twist. We'll place it into the end of the butt connector. Crimp it down. And then to complete the circuit here, I'll strip this end back. Put it into our butt connector. Crimp it down. And with these heat shrink styles, to seal them up, you can use a heat gun. I went ahead and pulled up our T-connector into the passenger tail light pocket, just like we did on the driver's side. And where I made those extensions with our butt connectors there, I did put some electrical tape over them just to take an extra step to help keep them protected. But that T-connector is going to plug into the passenger side tail light, just like the driver's side. You know, one end to the factory connector, one end to the tail light. And with all this sorted now, we'll reinstall the light. Back underneath on our driver's side, we can secure our module box, and we just don't have a ton of great places to put this really, just because we're kind of limited to the you know, length of our wires and everything. But I'm going to put it on the back side of this. It's a good flat flange, it's out of the way. So I cleaned off the back of that with some rubbing alcohol, as well as the back of this. And I got some two-sided sticky tape here. Put that on and put it in place. We're gonna have this white wire with the pre-attached ring terminal, and that's gonna be a ground. And so I'm just gonna attach it right here to this metal flange. I did take a small drill bit, just make a pilot hole. Seems to help out a little bit, but you can use the provided self-tapping screw to get this secured. You have one more connection to make. So there's a black wire coming out of our converter box. I used a butt connector and hooked up the one end of the black wiring here that comes in a big bundle. That's going to be our power wire. And while I'm right here, I'll just go ahead and throw a little tape on this for some extra protection. And this power wire is going to get ran to the front of our vehicle. That way we can hook it up to the battery. So I did that already, and this is the path that I took. I just ran it up along through here, where it goes up and over the subframe. And when you're doing this type of thing, make sure to do your best to avoid any hot or moving parts. Here's where our wire comes out from on top of our subframe, and from here I just followed our brake lines. So it runs along through here, kind of disappears for a second, but I have it looping around. And if you have a panel on your vehicle like this, you can remove a handful. There's a handful of 10mm head bolts you can pull out, makes it easier, just kind of throughout it. But we're wide open from here. I just use some zip ties to keep everything secure, following the brake lines all the way up in the engine compartment. and it's pretty open on our vehicle. I was able to just kind of push it up there, then go up top, reach down and grab it. If you're having a hard time doing that, you could always use the pull wire method or fish wire method like we used to get our wiring up into the taillight pockets. Up in our engine compartment, our wiring runs up, and we need to connect it to the positive battery terminal. So I cut our black power wire to length, took the included fuse holder, used a butt connector to pair those two together. Then on the other end, I crimped on a ring terminal. And what we're going to do with this ring terminal is cut a small opening in it. And I like to kind of make it a little bit smaller in size. But something like that should work out pretty well. Make sure the fuse is not installed into the holder just yet. We'll get it hooked up first. And if you open up this cover, we're going to be using this stud here. And what I've done as well is just kind of eyeballed where our wire's going to go in. And on the plastic cover, I just cut out a small opening. That way when it's closed, it's not going to smash your wire. So with this nut isn't designed to come off completely, at least very easily. That's why we cut this opening in here. And so I'm just going to loosen the nut with a 10 millimeter. We'll take our ring terminal. And slide it underneath the nut like that. You can tighten it back down. Close up our cover. Take the included fuse, pop that in place, and then I'll come back. We'll tape this up and then we can test everything. To test our wiring, I like to use a small tester as opposed to just plugging into our trailer. And I say that because if our trailer has any issues, it could mislead us into thinking it's something we did wrong on the vehicle side. But with that in mind, we'll try our left turn signal, our right turn signal. We'll hit our brakes and turn on our taillights. Now that we verified everything is working properly, I went ahead, put our panel back together, got our spare tire back up in place, and kind of just wrapped up all of our loose ends there. But that'll finish up our look at and our installation of the Curt custom fit vehicle wiring harness on our 2023 Kia Sorento.